Now we're heading to Whanganui to meet Marty and Marilyn Vreede. As a printmaker and a Te Reo Māori teacher, the couple share an interest in the power of paper. Through their business, Pakohe, they've been making Harakeke paper and teaching others to do the same, with Te Reo Māori woven through. After all, there's many lessons in the pā Harakeke.
So I'll just pull a larger sheet for you, and you can see the differences. And what you're trying to do really is create a swimming pool of fibre on the top of the decal, and it all runs into and sits on the mesh of the mould. And by shaking it lengthwise and widthwise, that's getting those fibrils into action and giving us no grain. But what it's doing is it's actually settling it out into a very even sheet of paper. For me, this is perhaps the best expression of wakawanongatanga that I've ever come across, because every tiny little fibre is holding onto the fibre beside it, is holding onto the fibre beside it, and so on as it goes round. And that's what makes the piece of paper. And then this piece of paper has infinite potential.
For Marilyn and Marty Vreede, learning Te Reo Māori has been central to their love story, as has been making paper from the leftover harakeke of the Whanganui district's many flax weavers.
Tēnā tātou. Ngā tino mihi ki a koutou ke wakarongo mai ana ki tēnei hōtaka o tātou. Ko Marilyn Ngāhui Vreede tēnei, he mokopuna tēnei no te awa tupua o Whanganui, e mihi ana ki a koutou I tēnei wā.
Kia ora, my name's Marty Vreede. I'm part of the partnership for Pakohe Papers. My wife and I have put this business together that makes resources for teaching te reo. My reo journey comes from being a first generation Kiwi, really, a Pākehā. My parents were Dutch. Becoming an artist, and especially a printmaker, there's a whole history of social documentary. And applying that history to my own situation as a first generation Kiwi here in New Zealand, you suddenly start to realise that things are not quite what they should be. And how do you comment on your own place as an artist in a community or in society in Aotearoa? It became essential that I would learn somehow te reo. When I came to Whanganui from Auckland, I was asked here to teach on the summer school in 1988, and I met Henry Bennett, that was an educationalist here. I met Rua Crib, who was the carver, and I met Morven Simon, who was an orator from, and an educationalist, an astounding man from the river. Those three men, over the next 20 years, were available to me, and in fact took me under their wing and taught me all sorts of things. And then I met Marilyn, who was my reo teacher.
Marilyn didn't grow up speaking te reo, but she says teaching it to others has helped her with her own learning.
I was 30 years old before I learned anything Māori, and I was actually tricked into learning by an auntie, and bless her little cotton socks. She tricked me into taking her to a weekend. I didn't know how long the hui was going to be, or the wānanga was going to be, but she needed a ride down from New Plymouth down to Stratford or down to Eltham, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll take you, auntie, I'll take you. So I put my two kids in the car, I went and picked up hers, didn't think anything of it. She had her bedding and her suitcase with her, or her bags with her, didn't think anything of it. She said before we got out of the car, dear, do you mind waiting for us? And I said, yeah, sure, we'll wait. She said, and that was on Saturday morning, and she said, we finish next Sunday.
Oh my goodness.
So it was a week-long total immersion te Atarangi hui.
Wow.
And it's probably, I would be forever thankful to her because it's probably the best thing I've ever done.
Diving into the deep end that way.
Being thrown into the deep end, but it was really funny because one of the rules was, kōrero Māori i ngā wā katoa. O i te wai e takoto ana ngā rākau kei mua I a koe me tō kōrero Māori. If the rākau are out in front, allow the rākau to talk, or you speak Māori to the rākau. And so I didn't know anything. We didn't grow up with any reo. We didn't grow up with any tikanga that we knew was tikanga. And it was like fascinating, just being totally involved in it and the total immersion. It was the best day or best time of my life, but it's also the saddest time of my life because I realised I'd lost 30 years of who I was. So I'm a staunch advocate for te reo, a staunch advocate for the tikanga.
For almost 30 years, the couple has been making harakeke paper and running workshops under the name Pakoe. Starting at the end of the process, Marty shows me how he pulls a sheet of paper.
We'll pull a couple of sheets of paper.
The apron goes on.
Yeah.
As you say, I imagine it can be quite a messy.
Yeah, it's you're constantly working with water. Because of that, it's very therapeutic. Really is. It's just such a beautiful thing to do because you're working with the harakeke fibre and water, and that's it. Just those two things. And it all just comes together in a process that is so simple and so beautiful that it's stunning. This is the very end part. This is the last 10 seconds. So I'll just take this off.
Yeah, make a piece and then...
Yeah.
Then
So...
You grab your screens.
Yep, this is a mould and a decal. Heard of the decal edge? That's the decal there, and that's what edges the piece of paper. So we've got our vat, and it's just got water in it and the fibre, the processed fibre. So we have to get all the fibre into motion in the water. It has to be moving.
So that it's not settled and...
Yeah, it's not settled and you're not going to get thin spots and thick spots. So commercial tanks normally have a rotating paddle at the bottom of the vat, but these are the rotating paddles, my hands. Okay, so we take the mould and the decal, and you're basically chopping a chunk of water out of the vat. Like that. And the decal guides the water and the fibre into the centre of the mould, and when the water drains, it's like a sieve, then that's the making of a piece of paper. So lo and behold, after 20 seconds we have a piece of paper already starting to form. So the fibres are now starting to hydrogen bond together as the water seeps through the sieve and drains out. So even now, after 15 seconds, 20 seconds, I can grab the corner of this and start peeling it back like that.
And it's all uniform, comes away all together.
It comes away as a piece of paper already. And the beautiful part is we've destroyed that piece of paper. You can just lay it on top of the water, give the mould a little wriggle, and then it kisses it off. All the fibre is in the vat again, and the mould is absolutely clean, and we can actually remake that into the perfect sheet of paper because we destroyed that one.
The harakeke Marty and Marilyn use is sourced from about 40 local weavers. They take offcuts and damaged parts of the harakeke to turn into paper.
There is variations, of course, with the different iwi, but we have been taught here that we leave the rito, which is the new plant or the baby, the parents, the grandparents, and then we start harvesting from the great-grandparents on. But we don't have to do that very often because the weavers do it for us, and it's fabulous. They just drop their kaikaha off at the gate, and we can use that.
Working with the weavers was the best way of going about it. They had the knowledge of what was the best flax to use as well, but then their tips, butts, and the spines that they couldn't use, that was their kaikaha toinga was our taonga. So we gave them an opportunity for their castaways to be reused into something else. So it starts to create that sense of sustainability and circular usage of the complete harvest.
Harakeke is incredibly strong, which is why it makes such an excellent fibre source for paper making. However, this means it also has to be broken down before it can be processed.
Harakeke is not flax, it's a lily. A lot of people don't realise that. The harakeke fibre is incredibly strong. If you run over a brown piece of fibre on the lawn from a harakeke plant, the motormower will absolutely stop in an instant. And that's because even though the leaf is dried and brown, the muka fibre is still essentially perfect fibre. So we can make really good paper from brown leaves of harakeke. The hardest job you could do with paper used to be money, because it was always folded, crinkled, scuffed, rubbed, and all the rest of it. And they looked at, in the 1920s and 30s, I think it was, 30s, they looked at using harakeke as fibre for money for the mints in France and England. And they brought out paper makers from Scandinavia and Europe here, and the watersiders strike in 1931. The watersiders strike ended those hopes and dreams of having an international fibre industry for money. Harakeke was strong enough as a fibre. It was equal to the linen flaxes and cotton fibres, but the surety of the fibre being able to be taken to the mints in Europe when an economy was in trouble and needed money, if it was going to be stopped on the waterfront by union, they just said, no, sorry. And the result of all of that was the Kawerau paper mill was the result of a number of those paper makers wanting to stay in New Zealand and retain a New Zealand citizenship. So they set up the Kawerau paper mill, and that's just recently closed, which is very, very sad. Yeah, that all had its roots in looking at harakeke as a fibre for the international market. So the best way of chopping it is with an 1895 chaff cutter, with its big knives going against the anvil on the chaff cutter head itself, form a huge rotating pair of scissors. And that scissor action for cutting the harakeke is the best that I know of. If you put it into a modern wood chipper or anything like that, it's just instant mayhem and everything stops. This here is, I say to people, oh, it's 300 years old. Wasn't this century, wasn't last century, but it was the century before. So
It's old.
It's old, but it works. It works better than anything that I know. So we cut the fibre, and then that fibre goes into a boil-up, which is out here. Because our boil-up is around about 300 litres, and we're working with 300 litres batches, we have hand-cranked forklifts to help us with moving the fibre. So if I lift this back, now this is the boil-up vat. It's just a big stainless steel vat, and we fill it up with the cut harakeke, which looks like that. So they're probably inch-long pieces of harakeke, And caustic is the baddie. We put caustic in there to loosen the lignin bonds, and that's why the water that you can see is
Got that dark brown,
Yeah.
thick kind of
like
colour.
tea.
It's got a very tea-like, tanniny kind of smell.
And that's exactly what it is. It's tannins. It's all the tannins. And it's like tea that you would drink, except you wouldn't drink this, of course. But what happens is the cut harakeke, after 2.5 to 3 days of simmering, the lignin bond is broken, and you literally can push it apart with your thumb and forefinger. So you know how tough harakeke leaf is. Well, now we can just literally spread it apart, fibre from fibre.
Individual threads, yeah.
Yeah, individual threads, and it pushes apart. So that's what we want to have happen, because it's the fibre that we want, and not the tannins, not the lignin, not the glues. We're getting rid of all of those, and all of the green mucilage that makes up the leaf. We're getting rid of all of that and just taking the fibre itself. Māori call that fibre muka, and even when you get a piece of fibre like that, that's made up of thousands of smaller fibres.
Even though it's just like thicker than a hair.
Yeah. About 10 to 15 fibres make up the thickness of a hair. And when we're talking about fibre strength, because it's the lignin bond that in waterleaf paper that gives you the strength of the paper, if you compare it to a pine plant, a pine tree, the mature pine fibre is about 3 mil long. Well, a mature harakeke fibre is up to about 15, possibly 16 millimetres long. So it's 5 times the length. Fibre 5 times the length gives you 5 times the opportunity for bonding along its length, and thus the strength of harakeke paper.
The cut harakeke, about 1 inch long, is placed into a boiler with caustic or tannins to loosen the bonds of the fibre, and it's left to simmer for 2 to 3 days. It's then rinsed before being added to the Hollander beater, where it's further broken down, pulled apart, and turned into a goopy substance known as half stuff. Oh wow. It's like almost like a mincer.
Yeah. But these bars here, those bars never touch the bar on the bottom. So there's always a gap, and the gap is about the thickness of a piece of paper. So as the fibre transported with water travels around this racetrack, it's like an oblong oval, as it comes to the beater roll, which is this spins like this, pulls the fibre through between the bed plate and the cylinder roll. And what it does is it squashes the mattress of fibre from being 150 mil thick, 175 mil thick, right down to probably 1.5 mil to a mil thick. So it squashes it right down, and what it does is fibre on fibre gets pressed in between the bed and the cylinder roll, and it rubs it furiously. And because the lignin has been taken out by the boiler, the fibres just roll apart, and so it ends up looking like a brown cotton wool. Tiny, tiny, tiny fibres. And this here is called half stuff when it's at that stage.
The half stuff is then added to the vat, where the paper is pulled using a screen and mould. It'll be left in the sun to dry and then taken inside to be flattened, cut and further processed. It's also here that the couple run their workshops and create resources for strengthening te reo Māori.
Pākoi is the name of our business, and we make resources for education and for teaching te reo. Yeah, so it's a kaupapa Māori business. And when you're working with harakeke, it's a natural extension of that. It's totally wrapped by te ao Māori, and all of the tikanga and kawa that belong to the culture, they all have their place with and alongside harakeke paper making. It's a contemporary usage of a traditional material, and we take our lead from the weavers and how they have learnt to use the resource and respect their resource and make it a sustainable resource.
What we do with our workshops is we use as much te reo as we possibly can. So, ka haramai ngā tangata ki konei ki te ako e nei momo mahi. So when they arrive, before they arrive, I send out a program. So it's important for me that we uphold the tikanga. So it's always karakia waka wanaungatanga before we actually get into talking about harakeke paper. And that's really important part of it. Ko tai mai te wā ki te waka o ki te mana ki te reo. The time has come to put the integrity back into the language, and the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to help people to understand it, and so that's what we try to do.
That was Marilyn and Marty Vreede I was speaking to at their home in Whanganui.